Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. And we come back, means you were already doing, but I again restart the classes on research methodology. So the whole course name, as you all know, research methodology, research and publication ethics. So you have already, I did initially the three classes, the introduction on research methodology, and then you have done classes on statistics and few classes on publication ethics. So we move on. So this is the tentative days. However, there were some changes. So again, I start from here, the 7th, and my classes will go on like this till June mid. And the classes will be on module B. So let us wait for the siren. There is some time. So we'll just take a break because there is some. Okay, then again we restart. So as I was telling you, so we did the initial classes. Uh, yeah. So this was the syllabus, module A and module B. So module A, we did initially the objectives and types of research. This was the part which we covered initially. I will, in this class, today's class, we'll just recap, means we'll do a revision of whatever we did. We have already done the value of statistics in research, that is completed. But what we have to do in the next few classes is that research formulation and design, module B, that is on research methodology, all this. So I'll just go through what we will be covering. Defining and formulating the research problem means the first part is on problem. So that we'll discuss next class. Subsequently, we'll do all details about literature review. So importance of literature review in defining a problem, literature review, primary and secondary sources, uh, reviews, treaties, monograph, patents, means few details on all these types of literature. Website as a source, searching the web, critical literature review, identify gap areas from literature review. So why review is important means how you have to identify the gap areas from the review. And then development of your working hypothesis. What hypothesis, as we discussed, if you may recall. So we'll do all the revision of the introduction of the research method classes today. So we'll coming means we'll just have a recap on all those things. Research design subsequently means the basic principles, need for research design, features of good design, concepts relating to research design, observation and facts, laws and theory, prediction and explanation, induction, deduction. Subsequently, we'll do details on development of models. We already have introduced in the introduction classes all of these. Means collection of data through questionnaire and schedules, collection of secondary data, selection of appropriate method for collection. Guidelines for developing questionnaire. So guidelines for developing questionnaire, successful interview, survey versus experiment, developing a research plan, exploration, description, diagnosis, experimentation, proper approach, and importance of recording observations, maintaining records, sample history, transparency. So this is what we will do in the next few classes. Not few, means a lot of them. I think 14 classes we have. So today, including today. So in the next 10 classes approximately, we'll do this. And then you have already started on research ethics. Kallol sir is taking that, publication ethics and IPR. Reporting and thesis writing, we'll share. Kallol sir will take a part of it and I will also start after we complete the research methodology classes. So what does reporting and thesis writing include? The structure and components of scientific reports, types of reports. What are the different types of report? Technical report, thesis, their significance, different steps in preparation, layout, structure, language of typical reports, illustration and tables, bibliography, referencing and footnotes, what are oral presentation, how we carry that, planning, preparation, practice, making of presentation, using of visual aids, importance of effective communication, computers in chemistry, such as usage of packages like Excel, AIM 2000, ChemCraft, etc. Whatever you use, like you use Origin also for plotting graphs. Manuscript tasking based on experimental data and literature survey. So all these, some part we will cover. These are the references. And then I'll just start the revision of what we did in the introduction so that from the next class, we can directly start from the concept of research methodology. So what is research? A careful investigation or inquiry, especially through search for new facts in any branch of knowledge. This is the dictionary example we already did. Research is a systemized effort to gain new knowledge. Okay, so all of us are doing research. So then we did, what is the motivation in doing research? Okay, So we discussed the motivations in details. I'll just glance through today, just the headings. The desire to get a research degree along with its consequential benefits is one of the biggest motivation. Desire to face challenge in solving the unsolved problem, that is concern about practical problem initiates research. Desire to get intellectual joy of doing some creative work, that is immense. Desire to be of service to the society, in some applied work you can do, which can directly serve the society. Desire to get respectability. Okay, there are some other factors also which we discuss: government, employment conditions, curiosity, social thinking, awakening, other reasons may motivate somebody to do research. So we already did it. Then we studied what are the objectives of research. Okay, what are the objectives behind whatever you were doing? So we discussed in details. I'll just go through the titles again. What are the objectives? One of the major objective is to gain familiarity with a phenomena, okay, scientific phenomena or something else, to achieve new insights into it. So this is exploratory or formulative research. To portray accurately the characteristics of a particular individual situation or group, descriptive research. To determine the frequency with which something occurs or with it's associated with something else, diagnostic. And hypothesis testing means hypothesis of causal relationship between two or more variables. This is hypothesis testing research. So we discussed in detail all this, just we are recapitulating today. So these are the 4 types of research or objectives we discussed. And then we did the Pasteur's quadrant, where we discussed pure basic research. So along the x-axis, with this quest for fundamental understanding, along the y-axis it goes yes, and along the x-axis consideration of use is increasing, and along the y-axis quest for fundamental understanding is increasing. The negative x-axis consideration of use is not there, and on the negative y-axis quest for fundamental understanding is no. So yes and no means a research which is given only by fundamental understanding is pure basic research. Curiosity giving pure voice to discovery. Yes and yes, both of them yes, is this quadrant. Means there is a quest for fundamental understanding and also consideration of use. So this is user-inspired basic research. It's a basic research, but it has direct application to the society. Work that locates the center of research in the area of basic scientific knowledge that lies in the heart of social problem. So this is Pasteur's quadrant. So this is very important. We have to see that most of our research lies in these quadrants, or some research can be pure basic and also pure applied. Means only use. So it has direct applied research. Innovator driven to solve a practical problem. Okay. Like what is did and no of science to what end? It's not much of use. Then we did what is research method versus research methodology, because this is a research methodology class, and subsequently we'll take up research methodology in details. So we discussed what is defined as research method and what is methodology in details. So we did all those methods which are used by researcher during the course of studying his research problem are termed as research methods. Okay, whatever a researcher uses during the course of his research. So this is research method, and research methodology is a systematic way to solve the research problem. In it, we study the various steps that are generally adopted by a researcher in studying his research problem along with the logic behind it. Researchers not only need to know how to develop certain indices or tests, how to calculate the mean, the mode, the median, or the standard deviation or chi-square, how to apply procedure techniques, but this is important in blue, they also need to know which of these methods or techniques are relevant and which are not, and what would they mean and indicate why. So this is methodology. So generally these are a direct vis-a-vis between research methodology and method. Research methodology refers to a process for effectively addressing the research problems, while research method describes the method that the researcher uses to conduct the research. Research methodology investigates the various methods that can be used to conduct experiment, test, surveys, while research method involves conducting an experiment, test, and survey. Research methodology is used to find a solution to the research problem, while research method is used to achieve the research objective. What does research methodology aim at? Aim to answer the question, how did the researcher complete his study? Okay. While research method aims to answer the question, what tools did the researcher use to complete his research? So here you can understand the difference clearly. Okay, so then we went in the second class, we did the types of research. The different types of research we did is fundamental versus applied research. Directly came from Pasteur's quadrant. Okay, means the fundamental research, which is of known, also known as basic or pure research, as we did in this Pasteur's quadrant, Bohr's quadrants, Edison's quadrant. So this is pure basic research. This is user-inspired basic research. This is pure applied research. So among different types of research, we first did what is the difference between fundamental and applied research. So fundamental research, which is also known as pure or basic research, is undertaken for the sake of knowledge without any intention to apply it in practice. While applied research, what is applied research? Is carried out to find solution to a real life problem requiring an action or a policy decision. Okay, this is the difference between fundamental and applied research. Descriptive versus analytical research. So what we did, we understood that what is descriptive research is a fact-finding investigation which is aimed at describing the characteristics of individual, situation or group, describing the state of affairs as it exists at present. While analytical research is primarily concerned with testing hypothesis and specifying and interpreting relationship by analyzing the fact or information already available. So we did study all these things with the help of examples. So in these blue are pure applied research, astronomy, elementary particles, studies on those. While pure applied research is increasing the efficiency of a machine, involving properties of materials having certain application, preparing vaccination for a disease. Similarly, like descriptive analytical, the examples we did frequency of shopping, references of people, these are all descriptive research, while analytical research deals with a hypothesis testing like mechanical chemical equation of materials for a particular application. It can be mechanical or a chemical equation or other evaluation. Suitability of water from a particular source for drinking purpose. So this forms under analytical research where we are testing the hypothesis and specifying the relationships. Then we came into quantitative and qualitative research. What do we mean by quantitative and qualitative research? Difference between the examples. So quantitative research is employed for measuring the quantity or amount of particular phenomena by use of statistical analysis. While qualitative research is a non-quantitative type of analysis, which is aimed at finding out the quality of a particular phenomenon. So this is what we did, the definition and examples. We did concentration of pesticides in bottled drinking water. That in the quantity. Okay. While investigating the result for human behavior, why people think or do certain things, how people feel or what they think about a particular subject or institution, this directly falls in qualitative research. So this is how we did the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Then finally we came into conceptual versus empirical research. Okay. Conceptual research, what is conceptual research? Conceptual research is related to some abstract ideas or theory, okay, based on some concepts. It is generally used by philosophers and thinkers to develop new concepts or reinterpret existing one. So this is conceptual research. While empirical research, how we define it, this just experimental research is based on certain experiment and direct evidence. It's a data-based research, which depends on experience or observation alone, okay? Not on some abstract ideas, but on direct observation and data-based. Empirical research is appropriate when proof is sought that certain variables affect other variables in some way. Empirical research is thus characterized by the experimenter's control over the variables under study and his deliberate manipulation of one of them to study its effect. Okay, this is the main. So conceptual research is something abstract. So we deals with certain ideas or concepts which do not have any direct evidence, but indirectly we derive out of it the phenomenon. Generally, the philosophical research or new philosophical models, those forms under certain they propose, the philosophers propose certain concept, like I don't know whether you have heard like few big psychologists, they have defined many models, positive psychology, like so many models are there. They have done with the help of human behavior, and they have defined some models. While empirical research, that the scientists we carry out experiments, we collect the data, and then with the help of those data or observation, we prove certain hypothesis. Okay, means how the variables vary based on some other variables. So this is how empirically, means experimentally, we define a research. So those type of research are empirical, which scientific research falls under experimental type of research and empirical research. So we do experiments, collect the data, and based on observation or experience, we propose certain or test certain hypotheses or propose some variables, dependence of variables on other variables. So finally, we came into research process in the last class of introduction. And these are the research stages we have defined. So our new classes start with these research stages. So one by one, every researcher who is doing a PhD, or even if he is not doing a PhD, he is taking up a new project. So all those will fall under these 11 stages. What are those? First stage is formulating the research problem. So this is what is in our syllabus in module 2. But basically the introduction I gave in research stages, one by one we'll take up in each class subsequently. So if you go back in the module B, means what we will do in these classes right now. So see, problem, literature review, hypothesis, design, prediction of models, questionnaire, research plan, and recording the observation. So we will go in stages, the research stages, what we did in the introduction classes. We'll go one by one from the next class. So we just revisit what we did in the previous introduction last class, if you remember. So these are the different research stages. If you see, formulating the research problem first is if you are doing PhD, initially you have submitted a research problem, right? And presented the problem in front of the committee. Then what you did a extensive literature survey, okay, and find out the gap areas. From the gap area, you developed a hypothesis which you will test during your research. Then you prepared your research design, right? Then you determine the sample design. Then you are collecting data right now. You are executing the project. I told you it's not that only PhD, subsequent after PhD also you will continuously do projects. So once you take up the projects, you will follow the same path. PhD is the initial experience which one gains a researcher. Analysis of the data. Then you do the hypothesis testing. Okay, whatever you proposed here, with the data which you collected during these stages, you do the hypothesis testing. And finally, you generalize and then interpret, right? And then preparation of report or presentation of the results, formal writer, what you reach a conclusion. Okay, certain variables is behaving in this way because of certain other variables being changed. So this is formulating the research problem. This we will discuss in details in the next class. Research problem. So we define research problem in the introduction class into two ways: those which related to states of nature and those related to relationship between variables. Okay, these are the two problems. So what we do, what are the stages? We single out the problem for study. That is, the researcher must decide the general area of interest or aspect of subject matter that he would like to inquire into. First, you have to do that. First, everyone. I also have to do that whenever I start a new problem, a new project. Initially, the problem may be stated in a broad general way. So initially, you do not know. You cannot squeeze, means funnel it out in certain manner. So you have to take a broader picture. Okay. And then slowly as you proceed, you will remove other things which are not important, and then you will shorten and focus on specific figures. So the problem initially will be in broad general way. The ambiguities, if any, initially they were not clear. I am not clear initially when I'm going to name the project. So there can be certain ambiguities. And slowly as we proceed, those can be removed and the problems can be focused. The feasibility of the particular solution has to be considered before a working formulation of the problem can be set up. The formulation of a general topic into specific research problem thus constitutes the first step in scientific inquiry. So this formulating the research problem is the first step in your scientific inquiry and in every researcher's scientific inquiry. Essentially, two steps are involved. Formulating the research problem is understanding the problem thoroughly and rephrasing the same into meaningful terms from the analytical point of view. The best way of the understanding the problem is to discuss. So how we will do? How we will define the research problem? If somebody is novice, means just joined PhD course somewhere, so you have to discuss it with one own colleagues or those having expertise in that matter. Okay, like the guide or other colleagues. In an academic institute, research can seek help from a guide. Okay, so this is what you will do. Who is usually an experienced man and several research problems in mind. Often the guide puts forth the problem in general terms and it is up to the researcher to narrow it down and phrase the problem in operational terms. Okay. So don't leave it entirely upon guide. You take the help of guide and then once you already most of you are already doing PhD, so already you have defined your problem. But again, if already you have done some work and some work is pending, from next work onwards, seek the help from guide. And definitely the guide puts for the problem in general terms, and it is up to the researcher to narrow it down. It is your responsibility to go do a proper literature survey. How you will narrow it down? The proper literature survey and your past experiments. And then you rephrase the problem in operational terms. Okay, that way you evolve. In private business units or in government organization, the problem is usually earmarked by the administrative agencies, means it's mandated. Okay, a private business has a specific mandate. The government organization also has a specific mandate. So your research problem has to fit into that mandate. You cannot do just any research on any topics. With whom the research can discuss how the problem originally came about and what considers involved in its possible solutions. Okay. So this is what is the problem. This is we will start in next class. We'll do only about research problems, and if possible, we'll introduce some amount of literature survey as well. For a research worker enrolling for a PhD degree, it is often required to present a synopsis or proposal of the topic. As I told you, you have to present it in front of the committee, submit to the necessary committee or research group for approval. At this juncture, at that point, the researcher should undertake extensive literature survey connected to the problem. Okay. Many of you might say, oh, sir, already we have 2-3 years into my PhD, but okay, some new problem you are taking up next. Before, I think if you have already done some problems, it happens with me also sometimes, that we have progressed and somewhere during the observation and analysis phase, I realized I could have done a more good literature survey to solve this problem. Okay, if I am talking about, say, one problem or paper or article you want to publish. You have done a set of work and now you want to compile it and publish. While compilation, you see, okay, I have missed certain points. And those things you are now trying to analyze and conclude. At that point, okay, you might think, I don't know whether it has come to your mind, it comes to my mind sometimes, a better literature survey would have given me better opportunity to tune or tailor my research in a different manner. Okay, I have, say, we develop catalyst, we have dispersed some amount of noble metal, say platinum. Okay, while doing the analysis of my data, I think, okay, with platinum, if I have added some small amount of cobalt, it could have helped me while doing the analysis and getting referring to the literature at that stage. But if in the initial stage, I would have done that in an extensive way, means extensive literature survey connected with the problem, I would have evolved in a much better way. So from next topic onwards, try to do an extensive literature survey whenever you are taking up a new problem, not only the PhD problem, that is broad, but in that also you are defining, you are doing several chapters. you are evolving. So you, from the next chapter onwards, or the next problem onwards, try to do an extensive literature survey in the beginning. That will definitely help, what I can say from my experience. And I think you will, most of you will agree with it. If somebody disagrees, please send me a mail. Anyways, so for this purpose, what are the literature survey you will do? Abstracting and indexing journals published on unpublished bibliographies are the first place to go. Academic journal, conference proceedings, government reports, books, etc. must be tapped depending on nature of law. In this project, it should be remembered that one source will lead to another. So always you have found that, okay, you are reading one paper, okay, while doing, mostly we do literature survey on review papers most. From review papers, we go to cross references. Okay, from that reference, another references, and we involve in literature survey as well, like that. A good library will be of great help to the researcher at this stage. Clearly speaking, a very good library or a very good literature survey will definitely going to help you throughout your PhD career and at later stage also, whatever problem you are taking. And then developing of working hypothesis. Okay, what hypothesis you are proposing and how you will solve it. So first is proposing the hypothesis. After extensive literature survey, researcher will propose a working hypothesis, which is a tentative assumption made in order to draw out and test its logical or empirical consequences. How does one go about developing working hypothesis? Answer is by using the following approach. How you will define the working hypothesis? Okay, we'll define it in an abstract way here. Although experimentally you have done, specifically you have done for each of your specific problems, but in a broad, I have to present in a broad general way. So these are the steps. Discussion with colleagues and experts, examination of data and records, review of similar study, exploratory personal investigation involves original field interviews. So this is how you will develop the working hypothesis. Then the design, very, very important. You have to design your research, okay? The conceptual structure with which research will be conducted. You have proposed your problem. You have done an extensive literature survey. Then you have proposed a hypothesis which you will prove during your research. So at that stage, you have to design it. Means what are the methods you will follow? The means of obtaining the information. What is it? How we will obtain the information for your hypothesis testing. The availability and skills of the researcher and staff. Okay, you cannot do anything under the sky. Yeah? So whatever is available to you, you have to balance it within it. Oh, sometimes you can go an extra mile to get some data from outside agencies also, and then you should do that. Explanation of the way in which selected means of obtaining information will be organized and reasoning leading to the selection. The time available. So you have to think of the time also and the cost factor. Okay, so all these definitely all means the availability of equipment and skills, the time availability, cost factor, all of this directly will impact your research design. Means what you will do one by one for the experimentation, all this depends. Or somebody who's doing theory, he also has to think all of this. Also for a person doing experiment, lot of much more thoughts will go into this cost factor, time availability, and skills of or the equipment availability. Okay. Determining the sample design. Okay, you cannot, I told you during, if you remember the introduction class, and you also from your experience, you know that, okay, you are, say for solid state chemist, means if somebody is doing a solid state chemistry, you know, say for example, iron oxide. So you want to do your research on iron oxide. I did during my PhD. So iron oxide, how you can modify? By several means, by doping, by dispersing, by and so many means. Say, for example, you are doping, substituting iron for other elements. So you can do it. You can, how you will choose the sample? You can do an infinite number of samples by removing 0.1%, 0.2%, 0.3%, 0.4%, 0.5%, and so on with other elements. But is this possible? No, that is not possible. We have to be realistic in my sample design. So, okay, then what I choose, okay, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 70, 80, and 100. Okay, 5 to 6 samples. which what it does, it saves my time, it saves money, I can, and also my energy. And from that, we can extend, okay, how the dependence on that other element, on the properties of iron oxide, I can do based on those. The sample design to be used must be decided by the researcher, taking into consideration the nature of inquiry and other related factors. I told an example from my study. Okay, for your study, you also know. Yes, you can extend your sample to any number of time, but to do your research within the stipulated time, costing factor, and your energy also, you have to limit to a sample which is realistic and also proper. So definitely I will not choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 100. Okay, 10, 20, 30, based on what you want to, what your hypothesis is. Okay. Then you will go for collection of data. Then you start your experiment or survey or theoretical work. You do an experiment or thorough survey or theoretical work, and then you collect the data. And then there's several methods of collecting data: observation method, interview method, questionnaire, schedules, and so many things and so on. Then execution of the project. If execution of the project proceeds on correct lines, the data to be collected would be adequate and dependable. Okay. So directly, the project should proceed on correct lines. So your execution should be perfect with a proper collection of data, which is adequate and which is dependable for your hypothesis proof. Okay. Or hypothesis testing. Then you sit for analysis of data. At this stage also, you need those literature for referencing. After the data has been collected, researcher turns to a task of analyzing them. This is very, very crucial, which many of us do not give a lot of time. But if definitely, immediately after getting your experimental or theoretical data or your questionnaire, you should do a proper analysis. How your properties are changing with other variables, say concentration or any other variable which you are varying, temperature or pressure or concentration or any other variables you are varying how the properties are changing. You have to do a proper analysis, proper graphs, and then proper coding, editing, and tabulation, so that you can represent it in a very nice way. So tabulation with the help of computers will be like Origin is one of the we use for an Excel for our purpose, and there are many specific and excellent softwares which are available. I am sure many of you will be using those for editing, coding, and tabulation purposes. Then you do the final hypothesis section. So whatever you proposed initially, now you'll do the testing. Do the facts support the hypothesis, or they happen to be contrary, or something you do in between? So usual question. This is the usual question which you answer while testing hypothesis. Okay. So you do a lot of chi-square test, t-test, f-test. I think you have done in the previous classes. And then generalization and interpretation. If a hypothesis is tested and upheld several times, it may be possible for the researcher to arrive at generalization. That is to build a theory. Okay, so many theories have come into picture by extensive research work by scientists. As a matter of fact, the real value of research lies in its ability to arrive at certain generalizations. If the researcher has no hypothesis to start with, he might seek to explain his findings on the basis of some theory, which is known as interpretation. The process of interpretation may quite often trigger of new questions, which in turn may lead to further researches. Okay, so your theory can be a turning point to a future generation of researches, if it is worth. Okay, so try to do that. And preparation of the report of the thesis. So how you do the thesis, the text contains introduction, summary. So all these we'll do in details during report and conclusions. So the whole stages of research we will do in details as we proceed in this module B. So first we'll start with the selecting the research problem. So from next class we'll do that. So how we start the research problem. So this is the definition. So I end my today's class with the definition of research problem. So what is understand what you understand by a research problem. In research process, the first and the foremost step happens to be that of selecting and properly defining a research problem. Okay. So we are doing research methodology classes. The stages of research we did introduction, and now we are going into details of each of these. So each of the terms should be clearly defined. So in general terms, how do you define a research problem? So this is how we do. In a research process, it can be of any types of research. Chemistry, physics, mathematics, computational, theoretical, chemical engineering, or mechanical engineering, or any other type of research, or in psychology. In any research process, the first and the foremost step happens to be that of selecting and properly defining a research problem. So this is what a research problem is. A researcher must find the problem. So this is a task first of the researcher. Researcher must find the problem and formulate it so that it becomes susceptible to research. How it is? So there the analogy is given. Analogy like that of a doctor. Like a medical doctor, a researcher must examine all the symptoms presented to him or observed by him concerning a problem before he can diagnose it. Okay, so your whole thesis work is diagnosis. Okay, but you have to examine and find the symptoms, right? So, like a medical doctor, a researcher must examine all the symptoms concerning a problem before he can diagnose correctly. So, before diagnosis, you have to find out. To define a problem correctly, a researcher must know what a problem is. So, this is what the definition of research problem means. We'll start from here, from the next classes, means from definition of research problem in details. And we'll go one by one through the other parts of this module, that is research formulation and design, from defining and formulating a research problem to recording the observation. So one by one we'll go through, and then we'll also do part of report and thesis writing also in these classes. So thank you for joining us today. If you have any question, you can directly mail to me. You know my email ID already. You have earlier taken the classes. So I stop here for today and wait for the next class. Thank you.